When a man hits rock bottom with sex addiction, he faces a choice. Either stay in the darkness, living as a sexual deviant, or find a way back to a better life through semen retention and celibacy. If he decides to turn his life around, here are the steps he can take. First, he becomes consciously aware that his actions are harmful and destructive. He realizes he's fallen into some form of sexual corruption or addiction and starts seeking help. It's important for the man to consciously ask a higher power for help to overcome his addiction. This higher power could be God, Jesus Christ, or another spiritual guide. He must make a clear declaration to renounce sexual activities and semen loss, similar to how a smoker might throw away all their cigarettes. This act of renunciation could involve burning certain magazines or canceling subscriptions to pornography. These steps and declarations are crucial for him. He starts making an effort to avoid looking at, reading, or listening to sexual content or seeking out women for sexual activities. As a result, his number of orgasms decreases, but he may still have setbacks. Each mistake brings increasing remorse and self-disgust, prompting him to pray more about his problem. If he's lucky, he finds activities to replace the pleasure he's giving up, channeling his saved energy into constructive and positive activities. These might include getting involved with people or services, engaging in the arts, writing a book, reading, learning, or developing a new interest. He might become passionate about his car or another vehicle. If he's very fortunate, he discovers meditation, which can eventually short-circuit his sex addiction. As his sexual interests decrease, any tendencies towards perversion begin to diminish. He sheds the years of accumulated unhealthy sexual interests, and what once was appealing now becomes repulsive. He regains a simple, innocent sexuality similar to what he had when he was young. His sexual appetite becomes sensitive and sharp again, no longer jaded. Sexual enjoyment becomes fresh and intense due to periods of moderation, making him feel more sexually potent and occasionally causing strong attraction towards women. This might lead to occasional slips. When a man who was once sexually active tries to control himself, he naturally accumulates a higher level of sexual potential than when he wasted it all the time. This sometimes makes him feel more potent than ever. If the energy is not transmuted, he might feel incredibly virile, believing he could be with many women. Even the simplest woman can become sexually attractive to him. At such times, he might feel his sexual energy is a precious gift, but he must avoid being misled into action. It's fun for him to feel so potent, which can lead to occasional slips, like a sailor who's been at sea for months. His sexual desire becomes intense again, reminiscent of his younger, addictive self. This is a mistake, but most men go through such phases. The accumulated sexual energy still wants to flow through the lower chakras, akin to trying to tame a wild stallion used to running free. With time, the horse becomes a powerful, disciplined workhorse that can be applied to any task, but initially, the horse longs to run free due to stored sexual energy. Any rekindling of desire makes him feel extremely passionate, as the energy within seems more powerful than before. With cultivation, the tiger will calm and serve him, and the stallion will become more like a trained workhorse, dedicated to constructive service. But until then, it's a difficult stage. Many men never get past this stage. They don't learn to channel their sexual energy up their spine. Supposedly celibate men sometimes make mistakes, leading others to think celibacy is impossible or wrong, making men overly sexual. However, the man is only in the initial stage of semen retention and has a long way to go. When he makes a mistake, he feels more remorse than ever, similar to an alcoholic, and quickly sinks back into old depths. Perversion reappears, cutting channels in his brain and body from past addictions and experiences. These channels, called sanskaras in Hinduism, are like grooves in the ground that water follows. Abstaining and leaving them fallow for a while doesn't erase them. They quickly recover and reactivate with each lapse. There will be lapses, but the wise man commits to ceasing all illicit sex, continuing to cultivate himself away from pleasure-focused sex and masturbation. He might discover that he can channel his sexual energy up his spine, making his upper body feel like a statue. He stops focusing on women's physical traits, feeling somewhat disappointed by what he sees. His most tempting sexual encounters occur in dreams, with fewer women attracting him as he purifies himself from lust. As he becomes purer, he feels the impurity in others, perceiving most women as used, dirty, or lustful. His instincts sharpen as he becomes purer, attracting only those with a certain purity. He no longer masturbates consciously, only occasionally near sleep or in dream states. He becomes acutely aware of how any semen loss weakens and demoralizes him. He might masturbate consciously or semi-consciously, but strives not to spill semen. Experimenting with Taoist sexual practices, enjoying sexual pleasure while retaining or reintroducing semen, can damage sexual organs like the prostate and maintain addiction to the sensation. Even lustful thoughts drain his vital energy, leaving him feeling weakened. He makes a vow to stop masturbating in any form, feeling a sharp sense of loss after an orgasm, followed by remorse and a conscious effort to rebuild himself, determined to keep his vow of semen retention. Now, he only has orgasms during sleep or unconscious states, retaining his creative material within even subconsciously. He understands the importance of conserving the pearl of great price, marking the rebirth of a king. It's a long ascent to purity, but he becomes capable of becoming a jewel among men. As his semen retention practice continues, temptations increase because he becomes more attractive to nature. He becomes a magnet for nature, and since he is no longer enslaved by it, nature becomes his servant. This cycle continues until he has experienced enough to renounce everything. This is a profound metaphysical truth. The aspirant will be tempted many times and may fall many times before achieving final liberation. The great yogi Vivekananda wrote about this phenomenon, saying that when you renounce nature, she becomes interested in you. The more you renounce her, the more she pursues you. And when you no longer care for her, she becomes your slave. Another way to express this law is that when you are wholly devoted to the Lord of creation, all creation becomes devoted to you. This is the ultimate test. Retention means giving all you are to the Creator. The Catholic Church became so rich and powerful because of celibacy, while Protestantism remains divided and weak due to the lack of it. The organization founded by Paramahansa Yogananda grows and becomes powerful for the same reason, as all devotees and yogis ultimately do well materially. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna assures Arjuna that one who meditates on him with a unified mind, always devoted to him through constant worship, he removes their deficiencies and makes their gains permanent. Christ echoed this truth. Seek first the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Even if one tries and fails on the path of yoga or union, Krishna assures Arjuna that their next birth will be higher, more comfortable, and conducive to liberation, dwelling for countless years in the heaven of the righteous before being reborn into a pure and prosperous family. The Saint Ramakrishna expressed this beautifully, saying that when the lord of the estate is about to visit his servant's house, workers come to paint the house, gardeners trim the hedges, and food and supplies are sent to fill the cupboards. Then the lord of the estate arrives. The path of semen retention brings many higher pleasures on the spiritual journey. One must free oneself from grosser pleasures to experience finer, more satisfying ones. Without disconnecting our consciousness from the grosser pleasures, we cannot perceive the higher ones. The divine being is the subtlest and most powerful of beings. Therefore, we must renounce lower pleasures to perceive the highest and most satisfying pleasure of knowing the divine self. You can't hear a beautiful symphony while listening to a lawnmower. By renouncing the coarse pleasure of masturbation and promiscuous sex through semen retention, we eventually attain far greater satisfaction. Without renouncing false pleasure, our consciousness remains engaged with it, unable to perceive higher pleasures. It is difficult initially, before receiving higher joys, but it is necessary to clear the smoke to see clearly. Ramakrishna, established in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, said, "A sailor must work hard to hoist the sail, but once it is up, the sail catches the wind, and progress becomes easy." Similarly, the spiritual life is challenging at first, but once you lift your sail, the divine breeze will carry you effortlessly.